Welcome to Quick Course Digest. So, you've probably heard the term ISO 9001 thrown around in the business world, maybe seen it on a company's website. Ever wondered what it actually is? Well, you're in the right place. Today, we are breaking down this global standard for quality management and what it really means.
Okay, so first things first. At its heart, ISO 9001 isn't a product you can buy off the shelf. It's more like a recipe or a rule book. It's a globally agreed-upon framework that any organization, any, big or small, can use to build a quality management system, or QMS. The whole point is to make sure you're delivering consistency and quality every single time. It really boils down to this: say what you do what you say, and then prove it.
All right, so to really wrap our heads around this, we're going to tackle it in 5 parts. First, we'll look at the big picture goals. Then, we'll dive into the philosophy behind it, check out the operating system that makes it run, examine the actual blueprint of the standard, and finally, we'll see how a company gets that official stamp of approval.
Okay, let's dive right in. First up, the big picture. Why would any company go through all the trouble of implementing this? What's the real endgame here? Well, it all comes down to a few critical goals.
And this is absolutely key. We're not talking about making a great product just once. This is about building a system that delivers what your customers need consistently, day in, day out. And at the same time, making sure you're ticking all the legal and regulatory boxes. But it's not a set it and forget it kind of deal. The whole system is designed to push you to constantly find ways to make your customers happier and just get better at what you do.
So that sounds great, right? But how do you actually build a system that can do all that? Well, ISO 9001 is built on a solid foundation, a guiding philosophy made up of 7 core principles. Think of these as the DNA of the standard. They're the core beliefs that drive everything.
When you look at this list, something might jump out at you. None of this is exactly rocket science, right? It's basically the bedrock of any successful business. Focusing on your customer, having strong leadership, making decisions with data instead of just a hunch. ISO 9001 just gives all this common sense stuff a structure. It provides the why behind the what.
And let's be super clear here. Out of all those principles, one stands above the rest: customer focus. It is the absolute #1 top priority. The entire system is built around understanding what your customer needs, not just today, but what they're going to need down the road. Everything else flows from this.
Okay, so principles are awesome, but they're kind of fluffy, They're ideas. How do you turn those ideas into actual, consistent results? Well, you need an engine. You need a practical operating system to make it all run.
Right, so that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? You've got these great principles, you know what the customer wants, but how do you actually bridge that gap and deliver satisfaction every single time?
The answer is something beautifully simple and incredibly powerful: the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. You'll hear it called PDCA all the time. This is that engine we were just talking about. You plan what you're going to do, you do it, you check your results to see if it worked, then you act on what you learn to make it even better next time. It's a continuous loop, a cycle of constant improvement that never, ever stops.
All right, so we've got the philosophy, the 7 principles, and we've got the engine, the PDCA cycle. Now let's get into the nuts and bolts, the actual blueprint. How is the standard itself put together? The whole thing is laid out in 10 sections, which they call clauses. Now, you can kind of ignore the first 3. They're just setting the stage. The real action, the part where you actually have to do stuff, kicks in at Clause 4.
And this is where it gets really elegant. These 10 clauses are not just some random checklist, no way. They are perfectly mapped to that PDCA cycle we just talked about. Clauses 4, 5, and 6, that's all your plan stage. 7 and 8 cover the do. Clause 9 is your check, and Clause 10 is act. See how it all lines up so neatly? Let's take a quick look at each one.
So, in the plan stage, you're laying the groundwork. Clause 4 is basically about self-awareness. Who are we as a business and what's going on around us? Then, Clause 5 is all about leadership, getting the top brass on board and making sure everyone knows who's in charge of what. Finally, Clause 6 is where you get strategic. You look at risks, you spot opportunities, and you set some real measurable goals.
Next up, it's time to do. This is where the rubber meets the road. Clause 7 is all about support, making sure you have the right people, the right tools, the right training, and that everyone's communicating. Then Clause 8 gets into the main event. It's the nitty-gritty of your daily work, actually making your product or delivering your service. All right, you've planned it, you've done it, now you gotta check it. Clause 9 is all about stepping back and asking, so, how did we do? This is where you monitor and measure everything, analyze the data, and conduct internal audits to get an honest look at whether the system is really working the way it's supposed to.
And that brings us to the final step, act. Clause 10 is where you take everything you learned from that check phase and actually do something about it. You fix what's broken, absolutely, but more importantly, you find ways to make things even better for next time. And just like that, you're right back at the plan stage, ready to start the cycle all over again, only this time, you're a little bit smarter.
So, that's the system in a nutshell. You build this amazing machine for quality. But how do you prove to the world that you've actually done it right? That is where certification comes into play.
Now, here's a crucial point a lot of people get wrong. The ISO organization itself, the people who write the standard, they don't actually give out the certificates. Nope. To get certified, you have to bring in an independent, third-party auditor. They're the ones who come in, kick the tires, and verify that your system truly meets all the requirements.
So what's that journey look like? Well, you'll spend a few months getting your system up and running. Then the auditors show up for a two-part exam. Stage 1, they check all your paperwork. Stage 2, they come on site to see it all in action. If you pass both, you get a certificate that's good for 3 years. But you're not done. They pop in for annual checkups. And at the end of year 3, you go through a full recertification audit to renew it.
You might be thinking, wow, that sounds like a lot of work. And it is. But the payoff is huge. We're talking about happier, more loyal customers because you're so consistent. We're talking increased efficiency because your processes are streamlined. You get way better at managing risk. And ultimately, it gives you a serious competitive edge in the market. You know, this quote from the legendary quality guru W. Edwards Deming just nails it. It perfectly captures the spirit of ISO 9001. It's all about moving away from guesswork and hunches and basing your business decisions on cold, hard evidence and data.
So, I'll just leave you with this to think about. What would it look like in your organization if every single decision about quality was backed by evidence, not just someone's opinion? How could that fundamentally transform your approach?